Hello. I'm doing something a little bit, well, more than a little bit different for today's video. What you see on my screen here is the launcher for Kerbal Space Program, of course. And I showed Kerbal Space Program a few seconds of it in the video where I tested out and ultimately installed the NVIDIA GeForce GT 730 in my main desktop computer, which is what we're using right now. But something sort of occurred to me. I thought, wouldn't it be neat, perhaps fun, to make a video of actually just playing around with Kerbal Space Program, in particular playing around with a very cool um, third-party spacecraft that somebody made for people to play with in Kerbal Space Program, and that spacecraft is actually the Space Shuttle, the NASA Space Shuttle that operated from 1981 to 2011. I'm what I call a retroactive fan of the Space Shuttle. Um, I was never interested in space stuff when I was younger, although I do remember reading back in 2011, or it might have been 2010, NASA's announcement to discontinue the Space Shuttle program. But it wasn't until a couple of years later that I actually became interested in space stuff. Particularly, I'm very interested in the potential for SLS, the Space Launch System, basically the successor to the Apollo program. Basically, it's going to be the largest rocket ever built, American rocket that NASA's making. And it's been in the works for years, and I'm very excited. Its first launch is supposed to be 2019, I think, so just next year. And I'm very excited. I really hope they get it finished. There's been a lot of setbacks and modifications and stuff just because NASA doesn't get hardly any money anymore compared to what they used to. But they're moving along slow but sure, and I really hope they get it finished, and I really hope it flies. It'd be a beautiful thing for me to see, in my opinion. So I'm sort of a retroactive fan of the shuttle. I've done a lot of reading, a lot of video watching about the space shuttle, and I've been having some fun flying the space shuttle in Kerbal Space Program. So thought I'd make a video here where we sort of try it out. Another motivator for making this video is how I'm filming my face right now. I'm actually using a brand new webcam that I just bought on Newegg, but what finally convinced me to put out the money and buy a webcam is so I could use my desktop computer here to talk to my boyfriend. Some of you have asked about my boyfriend. I don't talk a lot about him, but I sure had a lot of fun dropping the bombshell in the video when I upgraded the ThinkPad T400 with the new CPU. A couple of you have asked, when are you going to see my boyfriend or whatever, and the answer is not right now, but hopefully soon, if things go really well and not too complex in the next few months, maybe. But he's not here right now. In fact, he's in another country, so it's actually a long distance relationship, but we've been committed to each other for 6 months now, almost. But anyway, what sort of motivated me ultimately to buy this webcam was so that I could call, we could have our video calls that we do, and I could use my desktop computer, which is a lot nicer than having to pull out a laptop. Desktop gets a lot better internet connection, which certainly helps. And I figure maybe if I bought a webcam, it would turn out to be better quality than using a laptop. So that's why I ultimately bought this, and it did turn out to be better quality, and my desktop computer has a lot more reliable internet connection. I'm going to, where is it? I've got to change something here. I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second, but well, I might as well explain right now. The guy who gave me the GT730 invited me to use this MSI Afterburner to overclock the video card. So I've been playing around with that today, and I actually got some pretty significant performance increase out of it, overclocking it. But I see right now I'm getting some artifacting in Kerbal Space Program, so it is too far overclocked. So I'm just gonna tweak it here. I wonder if that artifacting will show up in the capture. I assume it should. That's a lot better. That works a lot better now. But for now, let's start the game. And I'm not sure if I already have a shuttle on the pad, or yes, I do. Okay, so here's our shuttle. And something I hope to, well, let me back up first. I should talk about the mod. It's called Space Shuttle Resolution. That's the name of the spacecraft. You can download it from kerbalx.com or kerbalx.org or whatever the suffix is. But you can download it from there free, of course. And it's a nice little spacecraft. And something I hope to do by just playing around with this thing in this video is just to show how launching a space shuttle, the real space shuttle, how it actually worked. Because, you know, you can watch videos of all the space shuttle launches on YouTube, but once, you know, once the spacecraft gets through the clouds and out of sight, you don't really know what goes on afterwards unless you read into it and maybe watch some of the very later launches where they actually had a camera on the shuttle itself. So I thought it'd be cool just to show, you know, how you actually launch the shuttle. Now here's the disclaimer. For reasons which I'm not sure of yet, I am horrible at launching this thing. I don't know, I don't think it's all my fault, to be honest, but for some reason when I launch this thing, it's horribly hard to control. It wants to roll and yaw all over the place, and it's going to look real embarrassing when we see it here. Or I should say it's going to look real silly, and I'm going to be embarrassed for it. But I don't get it because the person who made this uploaded a YouTube video showing them launching it, and it flies beautifully, perfectly stable, 100%. I don't think they were even touching the controls for most of the launch. The thing just flew perfectly, and for me, it just yaws and rolls all over the place. It's really hard to control. Now, what I've sort of been able to alleviate that a little bit. If we open the cargo bay doors here, I've actually put some cargo in here. And I don't know if the person who made this in their video, if they had any cargo in it or not. When you download the craft, this cargo bay is empty. But I put two, I don't even know what these are, but they weigh 4.5 tons each. And that helps a little bit. Actually, I tried it with one, and I was trying it with two last night, and I forget which one flew better. So this might not be the optimal case. At any rate, this is just my disclaimer. I'm probably going to suck at launching this thing. So what I find works is if we set SAS to radial out, which is what the creator of this did, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So we fire the engines, throttle up all the way, off we go. And the first thing the shuttle does is it enters a roll, what they call the roll program. So I'm going to do that, and that's when this thing's going to start acting real squirrely. And then we pitch down a little bit, and now you can see it's starting to try and roll on me and yawn a little bit. And then I'm going to go prograde. And actually this is working pretty well so far. Keeps trying to roll a little bit. Oh, I forgot to say, obviously I use my IBM Model M keyboard with this thing, so every time I press a key you're going to hear it, and if you don't like that, my apologies. There's nothing well, there is one thing I could do about it. I have a crappy rubber dome keyboard I could plug in, but I'm sure as heck not going to do that. So the space shuttle, and when I say space shuttle, I mean this one and the real one that flew for 30 years. The shuttle itself, the orbiter, has 3 liquid fuel engines, which are fed by this big fuel tank. And then there's 2 solid rocket boosters that are their own fuel and their own rocket engines. The solid rocket boosters on the real thing had just I believe, just a single big engine. These ones here have 5 smaller engines on them. And on each group of 5, only one of them's a solid motor. The other 4 are actually liquid fuel engines. So if you look here, you can see 2 solid fuel engines, and actually just 2 liquid fuels. So I guess the whole group of 4 is counted as 1 liquid fuel engine. So this red fire stuff you see here is because we're going so fast. It's the friction of the air. So the solid rocket boosters just burnt out. So I'm going to correct my roll here. I'm starting to roll around. Uh-oh. Oh no. Well, that's the end of that. We just rolled heads up, which is definitely not what we're supposed to do. Alright, we're restarting. I could possibly fix it and then continue on from there, but it'd be too awkward to me. So I'm just going to restart. Gives me more of an opportunity to explain what's going on anyway. Other things I've tried to correct the behavior of this during launch is you can set the gimbaling limit of the engines and of the fins on the shuttle itself to sort of limit the amount that they can turn when you ask them to turn. I've tried limiting that so it doesn't turn as much, so it's not as sharp of the turning action when you turn, but that didn't seem to help much. So I'm going to do this again. Something sort of cool is when I fire the engines, well, you can see it sort of rocking back and forth right now just on the launch pad, and it rocks a bit more when I fire the engines, and the designer of this thing actually built that into it because that's what the real shuttle did. When they fired the main engines a few seconds before liftoff, the thing rocks back, it rocks forward a bit, and then when it rocks back, that's when the solid rocket boosters ignite and it lifts off the pad. So that rocking motion was actually designed into the, well, I wouldn't say it was designed into the real shuttle, but they designed the real shuttle around that rocking motion. Just, you know, so it was, because it was so predictable, they were able to do that. So I'm going to try again here. Radial out. And going to begin our roll. I don't have to roll, but I'd like to be on an orbital inclination in line with the runway, although it doesn't matter, the runway's destroyed, as you can see. And I'm going to pitch. I must have landed a rocket on the runway and just never fixed it. And prograde. You can see the thing just rocks all over the place, and it really sucks. Well, it's doing okay so far, but you can see it sort of rolls from side to side. But when the creator of this flies it on YouTube, it's absolutely perfect. Actually, this is working pretty well so far. So when we get to an altitude of 8,500, I'm going to switch the guidance computer from surface to orbit, because that's what the maker does, because that pitches it down a bit more. But because I have that extra weight in the cargo bay, that might end up hurting us more than helping. So I may have to take it off prograde, just get it to hold a certain attitude. I'm gonna try that right now, just see what it does, how it acts. Now, hopefully, when the solid rocket boosters burn out, it won't make the thing roll all over the place. I'm actually gonna throttle down a little bit because our G-forces are building up. And actually, that's what the real shuttle did too. It throttled down for a period and then throttled back up, and that's why when you... Alright, let's fix my roll a bit and then see if this works. Oh! Alright, so I think that ended up okay. Throttle back up here. That could have ended bad. See, I heard the noise. It sounded like they burned out, but I forgot that the solid... On the two boosters, the solid motors burn out before the liquid motors do. They don't burn out at the same time. So I ejected them before they were actually finished burning, and that could have ended very poorly. How am I holding up? Okay, looks alright. Still got lots of fuel. So again, I am doing my best to launch this thing just like the real space shuttle was launched. So we are not yet in space. The Kármán line for Kerbal Space Program is 70 kilometers. That's the point where you could consider yourself to be in space. On Earth, the real Earth, it's 100 kilometers. And slowly but surely. So I'm going to aim for an orbital altitude of 100 kilometers. You can see we're pitched down a little bit. That's okay, because we're still building altitude. And you actually want that. You don't want to be pitched up too high. Oh, I might go up a little bit, because my apoapsis is starting to fall. And we're going to start rolling all over the place. Sometimes you want to pitch down during a launch. It seems counterintuitive, but the point of it is so you build speed and not altitude. Because if you build too much altitude without enough speed, then you actually run out of fuel before you can get into orbit. So we're heading up on 100 kilometers here. I'm going to cut off the engines when we get to about 105. Alright. There, we're done. We are... well, we will be in space. We're not yet in space. 70,000. We are now in space, not yet in orbit. So, awesome. That actually went really well. That's one of my better launches of this thing. So, I'm going to just turn prograde here, so we're nose up a little bit. So again, we're doing what the real shuttle did when it launched. So, we remained what they call heads down, what you might call upside down, throughout the whole launch, and that's what it was meant to do, because that reduced the aerodynamic stress on the shuttle. So we remain heads down. The main engine's cut off even before we're in orbit. We're not in orbit yet, but we are now in space. The main engine's cut off, and so the first thing we do, I'm just going to correct my roll a little bit here. What the shuttle did after the main engine's cut off and after it entered space was it ejected the main tank. So I'm going to do that now. And you can see the main tank starting to float away. And then what the shuttle did was it did an evasive maneuver to just get clear of the tank, so there's no risk of the tank bashing into us or whatever. And how it did that was it used the RCS thrusters. Those are the thrusters that sort of work to correct your attitude in space, because there's no air in space, so you can't use your wings or whatever to correct your attitude. So we're going to fire the RCS thrusters for a few seconds just to get us moving away from it. There we go. Just a 10-second thrust there. And I'm gonna make this a bit quick because I'm running out of altitude. But we're gonna do a maneuver at our apoapsis. We're gonna head prograde to put us in orbit. So there's our periapsis. I shouldn't be pointing my finger at the screen. You can't see my finger, but and perfect. 106 apoapsis, 105 periapsis. That's a perfect circular orbit. So we remain heads down through the entire launch process. The main tank, which we have ejected, will fall back to Earth. And once we hit our apoapsis in 2 minutes and 10 seconds or so, we will fire our OMS engines, our Orbital Maneuvering System engines, which are low-power engines that have their own onboard fuel, obviously. They have their own fuel source, whereas the main engines are fed by the fuel tank. The OMS engines, that's how they pronounced it, OMS, they have their own built-in fuel source. And the OMS engines are these two guys right here. Our main engines will not fire again. So on the real shuttle, once the mission's complete and it goes back to Earth, the main engines are refurbished. Their service life is over after that few minutes that they're firing during the beginning of the launch. And then they have to be refurbished to be used again. 1 minute 20 seconds coming up into our first OMS burn. Some shuttle launches had just one OMS burn. Some of them had two. They were called OMS 1 and OMS 2. Sometimes you just needed OMS 1. Sometimes you needed both of them. Sometimes I've seen on some videos, some launches, they skipped OMS 1 and went straight to OMS 2. Well, I think we have some artifacting from the video card again, so I might have to adjust that. There's the moon right there. Yeah, I'm getting some artifacting, so I'm going to do this burn and then adjust my video card again. Alright, coming up on our OMS burn. Set maneuver. 2, 1, fire. And then this shows how much we need to burn. Our burn will be over once we get to about 2 meters per second. And if we look at the map while we're burning, this yellow line is our target. That's what we're trying to achieve. And you can see our blue line is actually growing slowly. And soon we will have both an apoapsis and a periapsis, which is our periapsis is the lowest point of your orbit, apoapsis is the highest point of your orbit. So we're burning our way. It says estimated burn 45 seconds. So we'll cut that off once it gets to 1 to 2 meters per second. So, that shift in the camera you saw, that means we're officially in orbit. So now we're just circularizing our orbit. You can see the shuttle is beginning to pitch down to follow the maneuver. And done. Turn off RCS, we'll head prograde. And yeah, the thing sort of flips around, but that's okay. We are now officially in orbit. I can cancel out this maneuver. And there's our orbit. Periapsis of 102, apoapsis 114. So not perfectly circular, but good enough. It's a very good orbit nonetheless. So we can roll the shuttle heads up now. We will not use the engines again until it's time to return home. And there you go. Turn some lights on here. If we had a satellite or something in the cargo bay, this is the point where we'd open the cargo bay, which I'm doing right now, and eject our satellite if we were in the correct orbit for the satellite. So I'm just going to close the doors. So, ooh, yeah, there's a lot of artifacting. I am going to pause. We don't need to pause. We're in orbit. Nothing's going to happen, but I'm just going to turn down the clock speed a little. See how that works. And that seems to be a bit better. We've got our four Kerbal's here. We've got Valentina, Theosted, Billy Boblo, who's my favorite because of his name, and Lagerdine, I don't know. I believe we can view inside the cabin. Yes, we can. I don't know where everyone is. This must be the mid-deck? No, because we got 4 windows here. Oh, we're on the right side, so... Oh, they look so happy. The last time I played Kerbal Space Program a few years ago, I don't recall there being female Kerbals, so I think that must be something recent they've done, which is nice. So there we go. Actually, what I will do here, what we can try, is I'll open the cargo doors, and we'll do an EVA and see what these things actually do. I don't even know what they're called. So I'm going to pick Billy Boblo because he's my fave, and we're going to do an EVA. And there's Billy Boblo. Turn his lights on here. And we're going to say, oh, turn our CS on. I think. There we go. And he's running off his little jetpack now. And oh, there we go. I always forget how to run the little jetpacks. Alright. What is this thing? I don't see, I'd like to get some sort of prompt that says to do something with it, but I'm not getting that. So it doesn't look like you can interact with these things at all, unfortunately. He looks so happy. Oop. Yeah, it doesn't look like you can do anything with these. So, give them a bird's eye view. Before we get too... Oh, how much? Oh, we got lots of fuel. I sometimes forget that you have a limited amount of EVA fuel. And if it runs out, your Kerbal's floating off into space forever. So I suppose we will re-enter the shuttle. Grab and board. And Billy Boblo is back in the shuttle. Now we'll close the doors. So, I think the space shuttle is one of those things that, well, it's kind of sad, it's kind of melancholy because I think a lot of people, you know, ordinary, non-space savvy people know about the shuttle, but unfortunately it's all for the wrong reasons. I think just about anybody, at least in their 30s or older, aside from people like me who've actually read about it, just about anybody knows about the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. There were 5 shuttles ever built. The first one, Columbia, in 1981, Challenger in 1982, Atlantis or Discovery rather, in 1984, I think, and Atlantis in 1985, I think, and then Endeavour in 1992. And Endeavour was actually built to replace Challenger, because in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger actually blew up, basically, during a launch. 70 seconds and change into launch, one of the solid rocket boosters failed, and the sudden violent change, the sudden violent G-force on the shuttle caused the shuttle to break apart. It tore apart very violently, and there were 7 crew members on board, I think, and they all perished. Um, it's the biggest disaster in spaceflight history. But I think a lot more people know about the Challenger disaster than who actually know about the shuttle itself and sort of what it did and all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of sad in that regard that something so historical and so significant is remembered from that one time that where tragedy happened. Sadly, though, you would think that something in such a meticulous and critical activity as spaceflight, that would have been the only disaster, but unfortunately it wasn't. In 2003, Space Shuttle Columbia broke apart during re-entry to Earth. What happened was when Columbia launched in 2003, in the middle of the launch, a piece of foam flew off the main tank and struck the wing of Columbia. After the launch continued just fine, and the Columbia made it into orbit with all 6 people on board, not knowing anything, not knowing that it happened. If you watch the video of that launch, you wouldn't know that it happened because you don't really see it. It's a very minute detail. But a piece of foam flew off the main tank during launch and struck the wing and punctured the wing. It put a hole in the wing. While Columbia was in orbit, people at NASA who reviewed the launch video, as was procedure, I would assume, noticed that this happened. And they did pretty much everything wrong. First of all, not only did they not get the crew to examine the wing, which is something they could have done, so the Columbia crew had no idea what was going on, and NASA officials, in discussing whether to do anything or to just continue the mission as normal, decided to continue the mission as normal, despite engineers saying, "Holy crap, this isn't good." And NASA management was like, "Oh, it's fine. There won't be any issue." Well, when Columbia started its return to Earth, when it hit the atmosphere, and of course, because you're going so fast, the air hitting you, the friction of the air hitting you causes a lot of heat, just like you saw when we launched here. During its return to Earth, hot plasma generated by the re-entry entered that hole in the wing, began melting things, and actually the crew observed in the beginning of re-entry that a bunch of sensors started failing. Eventually, enough things were damaged by the heat entering the wing that Columbia broke apart in the sky on the way back to Earth. Those were the 2 disasters with the shuttle: Challenger in 1986, Columbia in 2003. I don't remember anything about Columbia. You know, I was very much alive at that time, but I don't remember hearing or seeing anything about it. It's probably not something I would have paid attention to anyway. But anyway, those are the 2 space shuttle disasters, and both of them happened because of negligence. Challenger happened because they launched in the cold. Engineers begged them not to launch, but management said, "No, we're going to launch." And the cold caused a rubber gasket on a solid rocket booster to not work properly, and the booster failed, and the whole shuttle was destroyed. So both disasters happened because of negligence on NASA's management's part. After Challenger happened, they thought they sort of knew what to do to prevent anything like that from happening again, but unfortunately they were complacent on other matters. And then Columbia happened, and that was sort of the end of the space shuttle. The space shuttle flew for another 8 years after that, but launches became very infrequent, and NASA by that time had lost so much budget that whereas in the beginning there were shuttle launches happening 1 or 2 per month, eventually it got to the point where they were only launching once or twice per year. And so by the end of the shuttle program, between sort of speculation that the shuttle was not a safe space vehicle, actually it wasn't statistically. The space shuttle is the most dangerous spacecraft of all time when you look at the statistics. Something like 80% of all deaths that ever happened in space or on the way to space or on the way from space happened in a space shuttle. But between that and NASA's budget getting smaller and smaller, and the space shuttle turned out to be not the money-saving machine that NASA thought it would be back in the 70s when they designed it, because it was so expensive to refurbish it. You got to refurbish the entire body of the shuttle, which has a special heat shield on it, so you had to replace that entire heat shield. You had to refurbish the main engines, refurbish the OMS engines, build an entire new fuel tank because the fuel tank returns to Earth and burns up in the atmosphere. Refurbish the boosters. The boosters were reusable. They fell into the ocean and were recovered and refurbished. But it was just so expensive to do. And you know, Russia with their Soyuz rocket, which is incredibly reliable, and so much cheaper to operate, there was no point in doing the shuttle anymore. So and that was the end of the shuttle, and the last launch was in 2011, July 2011. So that's the space shuttle in a nutshell. Now we're not through our journey yet. We do have to return to Earth, so we're only, well, my face is covering the timer, but we're only 27 minutes into the flight. A shuttle would normally stay for anything from a few days to 2 or 3 weeks. We've only been up for 27 minutes, but I figure it's probably a good time to return to Earth. Ooh, that means this video has been going on for probably 40 or 50 minutes already. Wow. Time goes really fast. Oh, I forgot, I was going to mention there were actually 2 different ways that the shuttle was launched. I demonstrated the first way. But there was a different way that the shuttle was launched, which began in 1998. And what they do is, you saw how once we get into space, we remain heads down until the main engine's extinguished. Then we release the fuel tank, do a maneuver to get out of the way of the fuel tank, and then once we hit apogee, we begin our OMS maneuver. The second way the shuttle was launched was after it gets into space, while the main engines are still firing, it actually rolls heads up. So while the main engines are firing, it rolls from a heads down position to heads up. It does that using the main engines, and then it finishes the launch in a heads up position. Then once the main engines extinguish, it drops the fuel tank, but because you're now in a heads up position, the fuel tank actually drops below you rather than above you. So you're already heads up once you drop the main fuel tank, and then your OMS maneuver is done heads up as well. Oh, another difference is that your OMS engines fire while you're still launching. So what you saw us do, the first launch profile, is that your OMS engines fire only while you're doing your OMS maneuver. But in the second launch profile that started in 1998 rather, they fire the OMS engines along with the main engines during launch. So it was actually after the solid rocket boosters separate, the OMS engines fire. So you have the main engines and the OMS engines firing simultaneously, and the point of that was to get a bit more boost to get into space. Those are the only differences basically. Your OMS engines fire during launch, and you roll heads up once you get into space. So, enough blabbing from me. So, what I need to do now is do a maneuver, a retrograde maneuver, to shorten my orbit so that we can return back to Earth. Now, I'm actually on a really good orbital inclination here. I'm almost equatorial, which is what I try to do, so that's really nice. Kerbal Space Center is right here where this other spacecraft is. I don't know what that is. Oh, we can switch to it. Let's see what that is. It must be just something I left there, or okay. Oh my god, that's so funny. So apparently I just left a shuttle here. It looks like things didn't go very well. We've got one wing, one landing gear. Oh, and there's two guys inside. There's Jebediah and Bob. Oh my gosh. I don't remember what this would have been from. This is a different spacecraft. This isn't Space Shuttle Resolution. This is, I think it was called KSP. KSP-1 shuttle. This must be another type of shuttle I tried that someone else made or something like that. But it's nice to be there because it marks where the Kerbal Space Center is now. I know that I'm not going to land this, I'm not going to retrograde, I'm not going to do my retrograde burn correctly, and we're not going to get in line with the Space Center again, but if by some miracle we do, I should probably repair the runway. So let's see, Space Center. Runway. How do you repair it? Oh, repair facility. Aha, okay. Now, there's some debris in the ocean. Oh, that might be our main tank. Or part of our main tank. Let's see what that is. Or our boosters, it could be. I'm curious now. No, that's not our main tank or our boosters. That is pieces of shuttle from a launch gone wrong. Oh man. 42 minutes. That must have been from last night, but I like how we have like just a landing gear and pieces of wing. Let's recover that. Okay, let's I guess we gotta go to the tracking station. Get back to our shuttle in the air. Something that I think would be sort of fun to do, maybe in a future video if people like this one. I have no idea, people may hate this video, and if that's the case, I'll never do one again, but if you guys actually end up liking this video, I'll do another one, and maybe we'll do something fun like activate the cheat for infinite fuel and like fly a shuttle to the moon or something. Landed on the moon. I think that'd be hilarious and probably really hard to do. Right, so we're flying along here. So what I'm going to try and figure out is I'll do another orbit. Speed up time here. We'll do another orbit to my apogee. Well, let me do the maneuver. Let me set up the maneuver first. So I'm going to do a maneuver at my apogee, a retrograde maneuver, and there, just like that. maybe like that. It's always hard to determine like how big of a how much you should slow down your velocity in order to land in the right place, because once you hit the Earth's atmosphere, your orbit starts shortening. And even though I've got this set up so that we theoretically have a 6-kilometer perigee, that'll disappear once we hit the atmosphere, and I haven't figured out how to determine exactly how much distance that'll give us. Actually, you know what? I think it's better to be safe than sorry. Let's do a 30-kilometer perigee. So I'm going to put ourselves into our position for the maneuver, and we have 10 minutes till the maneuver happens. So I'm just going to speed up time here. 8, 7, okay, and we're set for the maneuver. I'm just going to roll heads up here. Landing is really squirrely too, just like launching, but it's not as squirrely. Alright, so we are ready for our retrograde maneuver, which will slow us down, cancel out our orbit. We'll be on our way back to Earth. 20 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, we'll head prograde, prepare for our re-entry to Earth. I find it interesting how, although we're in space, I can turn this thing without turning RCS on, and I'm not sure how it's doing that. I don't think it has any reaction wheels or anything like that. No, we're not using much electric charge. Beats me. I don't know, maybe the aerodynamics of this thing are so bad that it has aerodynamics in the vacuum of space, and it's just turning with the fins. Beats me. Alright, so if we look at the map, we can end our maneuver. So we've got a 30-kilometer perigee, which will start shortening once we hit the atmosphere. So I'm going to speed up time. SAS doesn't work when time is being accelerated. So you see it tilt up, and then it has to fix itself once you slow back down to real time. We're 1 hour, 13 minutes into the mission. The shortest space shuttle mission ever. So actually, you know what? I don't want to head prograde. I want to point up by about 20 or 30 degrees above prograde. Just like that. Because once we hit the atmosphere, things are going to get very, very hot. And so what you nose the shuttle up a little bit so that the bulk of the air hits the bottom of the shuttle, because that's where the strongest part of the heat shielding is, to protect it while you're re-entering the atmosphere. We'll see things start to get hot when we're down to about 50 to 55 kilometers high. I'm going to speed up time a little bit. You'll probably see the nose of the shuttle start to turn red. That's when we'll know we're starting to heat up. And that's happening now, so I'm going to slow down. You see the nose of the shuttle turning red. I'm going to point down a little bit because we've creeped up a little too far for my liking, and here comes re-entry. What a sight. And I'm going to point down a little bit. Now at this point, changing your attitude the least little bit is very dangerous because the thing can so easily just go into a violent tumble because of the change in aerodynamics when you change your attitude. But I don't want to let my pitch get up any higher than 40 degrees above the horizon, because then you're at risk of the thing going and flipping over because of the air. Oh, I hit the wrong key. Oh, great. I hit a key I didn't mean to hit, and we're starting to wobble. Think we're doing okay. The heating won't stop until our... Uh-oh. Encoding overloaded. Consider turning down. Something happened there and we sort of froze a little bit. I hope the recording's okay. Hopefully we didn't lose any footage there. Things sort of froze up for a moment. I was saying that the heating's not really going to stop until our surface speed gets below about 1,000 meters per second. So we're going to be heating up for a while. And things are starting to heat up. We've got heat bars now. I'm going to pitch down a little bit. Again, this is very precarious just because of the degree to which the atmosphere is slamming against us. Any ill-planned change in attitude could destroy your spacecraft. The wings would fly off and stuff like that. And actually, I've had my wings break off many times. Not during landing, but during launch. Actually, some landings too, if it goes out of control and starts rolling around, the G-forces just make your wings fly off and then you're doomed. There's no saving it, believe me, I've tried. But, we are really heating up here. All our Kerbals look very excited. Now, if we look at the map, oh crap, we've totally, completely overshot the Space Center. Ah, I didn't even pay attention. Well, you know what, that's okay. I could try turning around, but that would be so dangerous to do, and actually I don't think we'd make it anyway. So we're just gonna land it on the grass. Oh crap, we might be heading for the ocean, I'm not sure. You know what? I think we're heading for the ocean. That's not good. I wish it were daytime. There's no cheat to make it to change the time. All right, our heating is coming to an end, so I'm going to pitch down a bit here. I can barely see. I can't tell what's land and what's water. I think we are going to land in the water. That is just so convenient. I could try turning around. Let's do that just for shits and giggles. I'm going to see if I can turn around. Now, while the real shuttle re-entered Earth, it did a series of maneuvers specifically to bleed off energy. And we didn't do any of that. We just let the thing sit there and stayed at the same attitude. Doesn't really make a difference for our purposes. I don't really care. Landing's always the boring part anyway. Or I guess actually being in orbit's the boring part, but the launch is the most exciting part. So that's the part I try to replicate the most. Yeah, that's futile. I'm just going to point prograde. It's futile because... Oh, 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 oh. I hope it quick saved. I hope I didn't ruin our entire progress. Ugh. Crap. Well, you saw exactly what I was warning about. Our wings flew off, and because I tried turning, you saw the thing started doing this, and that's all it took, and the wings broke off. I was hoping that the autosave that it did was at some point in like at least during our orbit, but it took us right back to launch. So trying to think of what to do now. I could pause the recording here, get back into orbit, and then resume from there. But how about how about we take the opportunity? We'll launch this thing again, but I'm only going to go on a suborbital flight. So we're going to launch it, get into space, but we won't go into orbit. We'll just go right back down, and then we can try landing again. So guess we're launching again. Okay, we're sort of bouncing around. Oh, and our runway's ruined again. Oh well. This is actually working really well. Once again, you know, the roll program is the most squirrely part of it, but it's hanging really smooth after that. So maybe having both of those weights in the cargo bay helped us out more than I thought. Coming up on solid rocket booster burnout. This time I will pay attention and wait till they actually burn out. Like that. Guess we're landing now. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oh geez. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe I didn't wait long enough. You saw them burn out. I'm not crazy. Oh, come on. Just get prograde. What the hell is that? That must be a piece of booster. Alright. We're doing... Actually, let me see if I can... I'm going to roll heads up here. I had to turn RCS on to gain some control. We actually get a lot of time here, so let me... How far away is the Space Center? Let's see if I can turn all the way around here. Turning. Oh. Like I said, if I accidentally make our wings fly off, there's going to be no saving us. Oh, come on. Come. It's because we're moving so fast. Maybe I can land on that little island. There we go. Okay. RCS off. And if we can, I can still fire. If I need to, I can still fire the OMS engines. And we are done. Like I said, the thing's uncontrollable if it's missing its wings, so... We're gonna try second time. Third launch. All I want to do is just show you guys how to land this thing. So we're gonna try again. Radio out. I think I'm getting the hang of launching this thing. Maybe I was pitched over too far when I ejected the boosters. Now I'm gonna pay real close attention. I'm not sure why our boosters exploded that second time. That's totally beyond me. Okay. There. That was a good booster separation. Oh, let me fix our roll here. Alright. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll try and land on this little piece of land right here. Tank separation. And, oh, I think, no, I thought I was going to bump into the tank for a second there. Oh. I shouldn't have headed towards the horizontal. I should have stayed prograde, because now the tank's in my way. Oops. What's our apogee? 92 kilometers. It's pretty good. Oh, jeez. I don't know what to do about the tank. Actually, I know what I can do. I will head normal. Oh, I should have done that manually. Oh, I thought for sure I was going to strike the tank. Alright. I'm going to do a sideways burn here. Get out of the way of the tank. We've reached apogee. We're starting to go back down. Alright, we're out of the way of the tank. I'm going to head prograde. Roll heads up. Alright, and we're ready for re-entry again. I actually want to try turning in towards the land. Because you can't land in the water. If I land in the water, I may kill my Kerbals. Depends on... I know smashing into the water because of a failed launch always ends up killing the Kerbals. So... I'm going to try something real stupid. Oh, this is going to be really stupid, isn't it? You know what? I'm not going to risk it. Go prograde. Oh. Oh, shit. Oh, that is a really bad attitude for re-entry. Just saying. Can I point upwards? I forgot to do a quick save too. Son of a gun. Remind me to do a quick save. We're trying her again. To be fair, I've launched dozens of times. I've only actually tried landing once or twice. Did not mean to do that. Oh my god. How many attempts is it going to take to re-enter? Oh man. I'm going to try and turn again. We're going pretty slow this time, so hopefully I won't flip out of control. Probably going to get mean comments on this video for how bad I am at flying the space shuttle. What can you do? Oh, I saw that coming. We have lost control. Again. Yeah, here we go. Oh, we're heating up. Oh. Oh my goodness. Actually, I'm running out of altitude. I'm falling so fast I don't think I'm going to make it. And there go my wings. Cool! And I forgot to make a quick save. Again. What happens if I roll heads up before I actually exit the atmosphere? And then eject the tank. Oh crap. I'm flying against the tank. Oh no, I'm not. Oh, I'm gonna crash into it. See if I can slide past it. There we go. Alright. Quick save. There we go. See, I remembered this time. Yep, here we go. I swear I've landed this like once or twice. Okay, I guess we're gonna land in the ocean. If I can land gently enough in the ocean, then the Kerbals will survive. Landing gear. Alright, we're all set for this marine landing. Okay, we're slowing down nicely. Good few hundred meters to go before we hit the water. Oh, that was a bad idea. Oh, that was a bad idea. That was a bad idea. They survived! Oh man, that was the world's most horrible landing, but they survived. Laughter. Oh. Did only 2 of them survive? Oh no! Did I kill 2 of my Kerbals? Well, let me recover the vessel and see what it says. It should give me a report. There's a way to bring it up manually, but I forget. Two crew members recovered. I think we killed Billy Bob Lowe and that other guy. That was Geraldine? No. Lagerdine. I don't think they made it. I think I'll wrap it up here. I was hoping to get a successful landing, but evidently I have not had enough practice controlling this thing in a landing, and also I think possibly, oops. I'm not sure what I did there, but I think these weights in the back here are not doing favors for this thing's handling while landing. So I might have to try and figure something out there, modify that, maybe just get rid of it and learn to launch it properly. I don't know. And there's Billy Bob Lowe. Let's bring Billy Bob Lowe on in EVA. There he is, and he's okay. Oh, maybe he's just sort of sitting there. Oh God, wow. That really startled me for some reason. Yeah, he's just sort of contemplating. And on that note, I think I will end this video and contemplate as well. So, thank you guys for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, then serves me right for thinking outside the box, I guess. But I hope you got some enjoyment out of it. I did a lot of talking about stuff that I don't have a huge working knowledge of, but hopefully you found it interesting nonetheless, and hopefully maybe it'll inspire you to do your own research on the space shuttle. Maybe look up some videos on YouTube if you've never seen a video of a space shuttle launch. It's pretty cool stuff. My personal favorite video, shuttle launch video, is the launch for STS-107, which sadly, that was the launch of Columbia that would break up on re-entry at the end of its mission. But the launch video is just beautiful looking. They got a beautiful shot of the roll program, and they got really great shots of it throughout the launch. So it's one of my personal favorites. And also Columbia was my favorite shuttle, not only because it was the first shuttle, but because Columbia's design was actually different from the later shuttles. Her wings have a bit more black on them than the later shuttles that just have totally white wings. Columbia had a bit of some black parts on her wings, so that's why I like Columbia. But anyway, from Billy Bob Lowe and all the rest, and from myself, thank you for watching. If people like this, then I might do another video where we do some crazy stuff like land a shuttle on the moon or something like that. But at any rate, thank you, and I'll see you later.